Hey everyone, welcome to this new episode of VICast. Today again with us we have Dallon.
Hello, hi everyone. New episode, so new spirit.
Yes, and we have a special guest with us. We have Adelyn, one of our clients. So maybe you want to say hi and give a self-intro.
Hi everyone, my name is Adelyn. I'm a musician and also a client of guide dogs.
Okay, cool. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we are doing something a little bit new today. We are calling this Round the Mic Talk. We are literally sitting around the mic and, we'll be having some discussions. So Adelyn has shared she's a musician, and so we'd like to hear from her what her experiences would be like, as a musician, how she does her audio things.
Yeah, so let's begin from there.
Let's begin from there,
Then
yeah.
maybe after that we can share a bit of, our experience based off the session that we previously ran. Hong Sen, what do you think?
Sure, sounds great.
Okay.
Okay, so there are lots of aspects to being a musician, and a lot of it has to do with sound. During the process of making music, you have to learn things like recording, editing, and there's a lot to actually cover, but basically the gist of it is you have to record, for example, if you take a song, you have to record the instrumental, you have to record the vocals, and you have to put it together, and you have to take away background noise. There's a lot that goes into it. But for the most part, a lot of being a musician has to do with music production as well, at least when you want to post your music and release it online.
Okay. So what do you use to kind of perform your music stuff or whatever recording that you have to do?
Perhaps you could share a little bit with us about the type of equipment that you use, maybe what sort of microphones, what sort of system do you use, what sort of software that you do your post-processing with.
Personally, I am currently just using my iPhone because I'm still in the process of getting a professional microphone for myself. So what I tend to do is, actually even Braille Sense and other like Braille devices have a recording feature, so I sometimes actually also use that. So what I tend to do when it comes to recording is I would use one device to play a backing track, like an instrumental or anything to sing along to so that I can keep time. And I'll use the other device to record. As for microphone, I'm just basically using Apple earpiece, the 3.5mm thing that you can plug into basically almost any earpiece jet.
Okay, starting small, starting basic, not much of equipment, right?
That's a really good point actually, because a lot of times when we think of audio production, we think of creating our own music, we sort of have this idea that, we need to have like professional equipment. But it's also important to realize that sometimes simple equipment like an iPhone and a simple earpiece does suit these needs as well. So in our previous VITEX session, we conducted one in May. We actually covered audio content production, where we went through the whole process of recording audio using instrumental tracks and then to come up with a music cover. And we went through the steps. In the future, we might run something similar to this if there's interest for this sort of content. So do leave your interest in the comments.
Yeah, so when it comes to these things, during the audio content production, we talk about mic, we talk about environments, right? So, Adelyn, why not you share with us, usually what type of environment you record your stuff in?
The most ideal environment for recording is actually, it goes without saying that you need a quiet environment, but there's actually a little bit more that goes into it, because when you record, depending on the sensitivity of the microphone, it can actually pick up echoes in your surroundings. So the best place to record is anywhere that is quiet and also, I guess, small, or if the walls are padded or surrounded by something that can absorb sound and echo, because otherwise your mic would pick it up and it would disrupt the quality of what you might be going for when you record a song.
Okay, well, that's a good wrap-up of environment, right?
Apart from environments, I think the point on sensitivity is important because sometimes we don't realize that when we are recording, be it podcasts or be it music, vocals, sometimes little background noises may be captured. So if I were to pet my dog here, so that comes across quite clearly. Just a real life
I think
demo.
that was not just a bit clearly, it was really, really clearly.
Yeah, so it's like, so these are things that you need to take into account, what sort of equipment you're working with. Say if you're working with an Apple mic, that's to say the Apple earpiece, the earpod sort of microphone, it is actually pretty sensitive and it doesn't really have any sort of polar patterns to speak of. Polar patterns refers to how the mic captures its audio. Does it capture in a certain direction? or it just captures all around.
Let's just do a demonstration of polar pattern since we have a multi-polar pattern mic. I think it won't destroy anything, right? Also, one more thing when we talk about recording stuff. Sometimes the little things may end up destroying your whole entire recording. Like, let's just say if connection comes loose, or it depends on the computer as well. But it really depends. So sometimes, usually, I won't recommend people to go around playing with their equipment while they are recording something.
A lot of mistakes I see people make when they first start recording is they adjust the microphone or they touch it or something along those lines when they're recording. Even wearing jewelry that makes sound, it tends to be captured because microphones are typically very sensitive, especially if you use them to record anything like this and the environment's already really quiet. So even if the mic isn't a high-end, super professional microphone, you can still hear really small noises.
Yes, and also do take note of the distance that you are speaking from the mic or recording from the mic. So if you're really close, it's not going to be nice. Maybe Dallon wants to do a demo.
Yeah, so I am quite far away from the mic right now, which is my regular sitting position. If I go like closer, hello guys, hello. The closer I get, you realize the more you hear and the louder it gets, of course. You'll also realize that you'll spike the mic.
There's also a point where it might start getting really loud but also really muffled, and that's something you want to avoid when you're recording. You got to try and find a balance, because if you're too far from the microphone, you can also hear the distance where it gets so far that you cannot really hear it super clearly.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do that, especially when you're doing something that has multiple types of volumes. For example, if you sing a song, or even if you're doing voiceover work, because I'm actually also a voice actor. If you want to say something really quietly, it's usually advisable to go closer to the microphone and say your line. But if you want to shout, do not stay close. Otherwise, you might end up literally spiking the microphone and destroying anyone's eardrums if they're listening.
Okay, so before I move on to the next part, which is the demonstration, I thought maybe I should bring up this point as well. Talking about moving mics, there are people who accidentally hit the mic and then it will just sound something like this. Yeah.
Something like this is fine. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah, so for example, when I have my AT2020 at home, it's mounted to a metal arm. I think during one of the podcasts, I did knock it before, so it makes this sharp
Just a really sharp noise.
gonging sound, right?
Gonging
That's a great
sound. Yeah, that's a description of a sound, yes.
When that happens, it irritates people, and you just have to make sure that your position is wherever it's supposed to be. Try to be in a fixed position as best as possible. Okay, so anyways, let's do a demonstration. Hong Sen, do you want to...
To just give a description of our sitting positions right now, Dallon is sitting right in front of the mic, I'm sitting behind the mic, and Adelyn is sitting to the left of the mic.
We're sitting in kind of like a triangle formation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can fit one more person here.
You could fit one more person on the right of the microphone.
Yeah, maybe we could get Claire to share a little bit later. But so, this mic in particular has 3 polar patterns. Again, polar patterns refers to the pickup pattern of the mic, so the direction that's capturing in. Right now, it's set to omnidirectional mode, which means that it's capturing audio all around it. So if we were to just talk as per normal, our audio comes across pretty clearly, despite our sitting positions. Now, if you're going to switch it to the cardioid pattern, what happens in the cardioid pattern is that the audio to the side and to the back would be cancelled out. So this is what it sounds like.
Okay, so I'm at the front of the mic. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
So I'm at the left of the mic, and this is what it sounds like from the side.
And I'm at the back of the mic, and this is what it sounds like. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
So you notice that the person at the front is of course louder, bassier, nicer sounding, so I like my voice. And you notice at the back, you can actually tell that, it's at the back. So this is cardioid, this is how it's supposed to sound. So if you are doing like a one-person show, right? Or if you are recording voiceover or covers, generally you will use this pattern.
Yeah, this is sufficient because you won't need that many pickup points for the microphone.
Yes, I've just switched it back to omnidirectional again so that, we can...
Hear everybody balanced, yeah.
Is it back?
Yep, it's back.
Alright.
There is still one more pattern, which is the bidirectional pattern. So bidirectional would mean that it's capturing from the front and the back of the mic. We'll switch to that shortly. But the audio or any sounds from the side would be muffled.
Or softer, yeah.
It's just softer. It sounds... Well, okay, let's just hear
Let's
that.
just do it, yep.
Okay, so again, this is in bidirectional mode. This is typically how Dallon and I would record the podcast. We will sit in front and behind the mic. I'm behind the mic right now.
Yeah, and I'm in front of the mic, so my boomy bassy voice is back.
I'm at the side of the microphone, so it doesn't sound as clear. You can hear that there's something like slightly different about my voice compared to Dallon and Hong Sen's voices.
So as you can hear, right, when she talks at the side, it sounds like she is, sitting, sitting on the chair beside us, quite far away.
I didn't move. It's just the way the microphone picks up sound.
Yep,
And
so now it's
we're
back.
back
Yeah,
to
and now I'm back. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I've always been here, but the microphone's back.
Yep. Okay, so that's polar pattern. Just a really quick demo
Yep.
for everyone to get an idea.
So there are high-end microphones. Ours is, I would say, mid-range.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
This is a
little bit better than
Samsung
entry.
G-Track Pro. For those who might be curious, it has quite a few functions. It has a line-in function to capture audio from instruments like a guitar, or for our case, we use it to capture audio from other pieces of equipment.
Say our previous episode, we recorded the iPad voice over through this microphone, through the line-in port.
And during our VITEX sessions, we usually plug in our demonstration device into the microphone directly. That's why you can hear our device audio pretty clearly.
And
Okay.
I'm almost jealous of your microphones. It's much better than an Apple earpiece, isn't it?
Okay, so when we talk about comparison, of course, we can't really compare. But remember we said that you don't need very high-end equipment to get started. You can always start somewhere, like an Apple earpiece. I used to record on an Apple earpiece
A lot
as
of
well.
creators actually do that. It's a very popular starting mic because it's affordable. You can access it quite easily as long as you have a little bit of a budget. And you can also record with it because it has a pretty clear sound. It's not industry level, far from it, but it's clear enough that if you know how to work with it, it actually sounds really good. It's a really good starting microphone.
Yeah. So definitely in terms of its microphone quality, it's way above average. It's clear, it's loud, it's pretty bright sounding. So it's a really good mic to start with. And so we are of course referring to the earpods, the wired ones, not the AirPods, which are the true wireless earbuds from Apple.
Bluetooth earpieces are not really great for recording.
Yeah, there are many factors that causes the quality to be a little bit degraded. Partially it's the positioning of the microphones, partially it's also the way that the earpieces connects and communicates with the device itself.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about it in future episodes when we cover about audio products, if we do. Of course, if you're interested, please drop it down in the comment below and we'll see that interest and we'll definitely work on it, right? Okay, so now let's talk about the very important thing. So we talk about pre-processing, which is microphones, how you set things up, what are different polar patterns. So now let's talk about the after process, which is after you have recorded your track. And we will start by talking about softwares that you can use. I guess I can talk about the software that we are currently using right now to record this podcast. I'm using a Windows computer. It's currently on my right. So for our podcast, generally we record it with Audacity. Audacity is a free software that is available in Mac, Linux, and Windows. Yeah, so available in all platforms. I generally use it on my Windows 11 computer to record our podcast. So we set up the process, we just record. There are many other ways to record it, but generally we use Audacity to record. And during the first round of editing, we just cut out things that we don't want, and then we will pass into Descript for transcripting. So that's where your transcript come about.
That's the product of what you're seeing right now on the screen.
Yep.
But there are many other ways to record, and typically a lot of them use a computer. With computer softwares like Audacity, you can plug in your microphone and record straight into the software, and then you can use that software to edit. Audacity is one of them. It's one of the most common, but there are others. For example, if you're a Mac user, you can rely on GarageBand, which is also free. You can also use your phone to record. It's actually, like the Apple earpiece, a very good starting point because phones, at least most phones, seem to have a decent audio quality for recording. And most phones have a recording app. For the sake of conversation, let's just talk about iPhones because that's what I typically use. Most phones tend to have a pretty good audio quality. So, for example, I'm using an iPhone 8. And there is an inbuilt voice recording app in it called Voice Memos. So if you click onto that app, you can just press a record button and it will immediately start picking up audio. So there are many different ways you can record, and you don't even need to buy an editing software, especially not when you're just starting out, because there are lots of free ones out there that you can get.
I think I just want to add on to what Adelyn said. GarageBand, yes, it's available on the Mac and it's definitely available on your iPhone or iPad as well. You can definitely use it to record your musical instruments or your vocal stuff as well.
You have to plug your equipment into most of these softwares to use them in that way. For example, if you want to record a musical instrument such as a piano keyboard, you have to use a cable and a few other cables probably, depending on what cable you're using, to attach it to the computer, and then you can just record it straight into the software. But it's basically no different than connecting your microphone.
You can visit previous episode of VICast about phone accessories, and maybe you can have a better idea of what kind of accessories you may need for your device. So generally, if you want to plug your mic into your phone, let's say you just have to make sure your phone is able to power it, that's for sure, and then you need to buy the right connector. So you may need a lightning to USB or Type-C to USB depending on your input of instrument that you are using.
After you're done recording, you also have to think about how you want to edit your audio file, because it's actually really difficult to get a perfect take. Even professionals find it really difficult to get a perfect take. So editing an audio file is something you have to do once you are done recording, even if it's something as simple as removing background noise. I mean, you can use the raw take if you want. A lot of professional industry people would ask you to send in a raw take because they want to edit it for you. But if you're doing projects for yourself, if you're, for example, posting covers on a YouTube channel or releasing your own songs on Spotify or anything of the sort, you have to know how to clean up your own audio file. And when you do that, you have to also take into consideration which software would be best for that kind of task. Some people use a different software for recording and editing. For instance, I use voice memos for recording mostly, but when it comes to editing, I have to put it into a computer, such as into GarageBand, to tweak the audio file a little bit. But other people do their recording and editing in the same software, and most softwares do offer that feature. Audacity is a really good example of one of them. Like they said earlier in this podcast, you can record in Audacity and then edit later, which is what is done for this particular podcast. And you can also do that with other softwares. Each software functions a bit differently when it comes to editing, either in the layout or in the way it's done. So it really depends on the user, what's easier for them to use.
Yeah, and to add on, each software has also come with different kind of effects, different capabilities. Software that you may have to pay may have more capabilities.
Premium qualities, basically.
Yep, you can have better sound effects. There's more things you can tweak with your audio, for example. There are a lot of audio softwares in the window market, but most of them are not accessible to us visually impaired users. Audacity is one of the best. I know there's one more, but I can't really remember the name. It's on a Windows computer as well. On the Mac, you can either use GarageBand, or for the paid version, it's Logic Pro. I think it costs about 200-ish to 300 USD or Singapore dollars, I'm not sure. But it's a one-time payment, so I guess if you are doing this full-time, you might as well just get it. I know for those who post their YouTube covers on their channel, they tend to use software like iMovie to kind of put everything together. Of course, that's for iPhone users and Mac users. Adelyn, why not you share a little bit about it? Do you do that?
The thing about iMovie is that it is, as the name suggests, something to edit movies. Whether or not you can make a professional movie with that app is purely up to the skill of the user. But it is a video editing app. So you can use it to put together audio, but it's typically used in the final stages of what you want to do. If you decide that you want to post whatever you're doing on a platform like YouTube, because YouTube does not grant audio posting, you have to post a video. So most of the time, what you have to do if you're posting on something like YouTube is you have to turn your audio file into a video file, and it's more than just converting from MP3 to MP4, because a lot of viewers want at least some kind of visuals for their video, otherwise it would just look really dull. So a lot of the time, what you can do with iMovie is to put a still image in front of the audio so that it at least has something on the screen instead of just, a black screen. And in the case of iMovie, that means selecting an image and adding it into the project. You basically import the finished audio into the project and you look at its timestamp. Then you click on an option called Add Media and you click on an image. Every time you click on that image, it only adds about 6 or 7 seconds of visual to the final file. So you have to keep clicking until it reaches the time length of your original audio file. It gets complicated if you have more than one audio file. And if you know how to convert files from MP4 to MP3, which is the opposite of what we were just trying to do, you can actually also use iMovie to put together different audio files and then just convert it into an MP3 format. But that's when you really want to get complicated with things.
Cool, so those are like creating collection videos or videos on YouTube. The last thing we want to talk about on today's podcast is about audio effects.
When you finish an audio editing session, one of the last things you can do before wrapping it up and exporting it and saying, okay, this is the final product, is add a few effects to the file. Effects can be things such as reverb, or you can pan the audio one way or the other. You can do a lot of things with the audio, apart from just cleaning it up and editing. The point of that is to enhance the quality of the audio itself. Remember when we were talking about recording and how it's best to do it in a place where there isn't any echo? Counterintuitively, reverb actually makes the audio file echo a little bit, but it's a very controlled echo, so that it's enough to make the vocals sound a bit stronger, and yet it doesn't get to a point where it's overwhelming for the listener.
It also helps to mask some of the smaller issues that may be introduced during recording, little noises that you might want to mask with reverb. So that's what audio effects may actually be good for as well.
There are definitely many audio effects. For example, Adelyn did mention about removing background noise. Audacity has a section for you to do that, where you can remove some background noise. But the background noise has to be maybe something like a soft aircon noise is fine. But
So let's have 5 seconds of silence to just hear what it sounds like. Right, so I guess I've just introduced something else to you guys to make you guys annoyed about our podcast. You'll constantly be hearing this background noise now that we
Yeah.
told you that it's there.
It's a very silent thing that you don't notice, but the moment we fall silent, you realize you're still hearing something from the audio, from the podcast, but you just don't know how to describe it. It's called white noise, and
Yep.
it's really troublesome when you're trying to get a clean audio file, because all you can hear from the moment you notice it is that white noise, and that's what noise removal is for. If the microphone picks up too much of it, it can start interfering with your voice.
So there's one very important thing I want to just bring by when we talk about noise removal effect. Do note that you cannot apply the effect too many times, else your audio is just going to sound very compressed, and as Adelyn shared, it's going to affect your microphone. And don't expect to have a TV running in your background recording your audio product, hoping that during post-production you can cancel it out, because it's not possible.
So to talk about silence again, the point about a silent environment or quiet environment is that sometimes to us it's quiet, but it may not actually be quiet to the mic. We may think of a quiet environment, maybe something like a room, maybe our room at home, whereby it's quiet because there's no one talking, and okay, so we have done everything. We turn off the TV, no radio, no music playing. But don't forget, there might be traffic noises coming from downstairs, maybe birds, maybe car horns, bicycle bells.
Even something as simple as your neighbor closing the front door.
Yeah. So these are all different type of noises that we have to take into account when we are recording.
Which is why it's actually really difficult to record in a place like your house, especially when you're not living alone. Because if you're trying to record in a quiet environment and someone's washing their hands in the next room, that can be heard.
So I think one very big takeaway of this podcast, or recording in general, in the whole audio production process, is you need to get things right at the start. So whatever mic you use, you need to know it well. You need to test it. You need to make sure that you know what its capability, how sensitive it is.
You need to also know about its settings, if it has any, because if it does have any settings, you can actually use that to your advantage and adjust what kind of sound it picks up, like what we did with this one.
Yep. It's best to always get the audio as clean as possible at the very beginning before you start recording. That process could take 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on your environment. Usually not so long, but it depends on how you want your audio to sound at the end of the day. The more effort you put into your pre-processing, which is prepping for recording, the less effort you need to take to put in your post-processing, which is your editing process.
Because there's only so much software can do. So despite the fact that noise removal may be able to remove most of the white noises, spikes of sounds like say clapping of hands and things like that cannot be removed by software. It will still be there because they are just too obvious and
They're too loud. The important thing about noise removal is it can only remove really quiet sounds, because once a sound
quiet and constant.
I guess quiet and constant, because once it gets to a point where it's loud enough that it's almost on par with your own voice, or even to a percentage of your own voice volume, it will not be able to be removed. No matter what you do, it'll just be there. Even a small bit of it will still be there.
And as Dallon has shared, sometimes audio processing may introduce some unnatural effects to the audio itself. You may hear some ringing noises, you may hear some artifacts that makes the audio sounds really unnatural. And that's something that we should definitely try to avoid when we are doing editing. I think we forgot to mention, sometimes certain microphones may actually introduce their own noises. It may be a hiss, like a white noise that just comes by default with the microphone itself. This is why it's important, as Dallon has mentioned, to always play around with your equipment to find out what it sounds like, what are its capabilities, what are its limitations, before you start recording proper.
I think if you guys ever do an episode about audio products in general, we can probably discuss how to pick a good microphone and how to test it and what kind of features they could have. So like they mentioned, if you're interested in that, leave that in the comments. But essentially, it all comes down to your equipment and knowing how to clean up what you can't prevent or avoid when you edit. There's a lot of ways to do them, and adding reverb and putting noise removal are just some of the ways that you can. There are a lot of other effects in different softwares, but it really depends on the software and what you need from the audio for you to decide whether or not you want to use them. At the end of the day, the setup is very important, but also learning how to edit and clean up anything you can't prevent or avoid is also important. But like they said, software can only do so much. So at the end of the day, the most important thing really is to have a good place to record and to have the knowledge of how to clean up anything that you can't avoid. Because the problem with recording and having something that you can't take away is that if you try to put it into your finished product and the sound or the spike of the microphone is too obvious, there are some cases where it would bother you to the point where you might just end up having to redo everything from scratch, and that could take up an extra recording session, and you don't want to do that. So you want to try and get everything as perfect as you can at the beginning. It's okay if it takes a little bit to set up, because the outcome will be worth it.
Yup. So I guess we have mentioned a lot more on the software, the things we use, the 3-step process. There's one more thing that I just want to mention when we were talking about releasing stuff on music platforms like Spotify. Audacity cannot cater for MIDI input. That's an important thing to note. MIDI input is an input for music, like typing notes using a MIDI keyboard. So a MIDI keyboard is a keyboard that feels like a piano, but MIDI is musical instructions for the software. I'll put it this way. That's a very layman term to put it. It is used to compose a track, like a music track. So Audacity cannot cater for MIDI input. Hence, you may have to use software like GarageBand for users who are on Windows. There are softwares to do it. There are some that is not accessible to us visually impaired user. Okay, so I guess we have done a really huge coverage of the audio production world and how we can go about doing things. Of course, if you all have further questions, further advice, further feedback,
please do reach out to us. We'll be happy to help you with your hobby of starting your own audio production journey.
Yep. So mainly I would like to thank Adelyn for her time today, for sitting in with us through this podcast, sharing some of her experience. It's always great to hear from some of our clients as well. So
who has experiences in these areas. It's great to hear from you guys.
okay, so of course, guys, we are almost reaching the end of our podcast, and I would like to really send out my greatest thank you to Adelyn.
I would like to do that too, since
Thank
you know, yeah.
Thank you. THANK space Q. Yes, that's how we
Yes,
spell thank you.
yes.
Don't take that seriously. Do not spell it that way. But yeah, it was a pleasure. If you want to check out any of my stuff, I actually have a YouTube channel, which is how I figured out how to do some of this stuff, and it's called Melody Snowflake. I do a bunch of fandom related works, such as covers or fan dubs. Yeah, if you're interested, you can find me at Melody Snowflake on YouTube.
We'll put that link in the description, so it's a direct link. Just go down to the description and look for Melody Snowflake, and
Yup.
you'll find it. If you all have stayed all the way through here, you all are great. Thanks for
Thank you
supporting.
so much for listening.
Feel free to drop a like if you like the video, and subscribe so you don't ever miss out on our weird podcast.
Along with other GDS content, which are more professionally done.
Yeah, so out here we would really want to be able to share as much as we can with you. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will hope to see you in the next episode of VICast, where we will share more information, of course.
Yep, thanks everyone. Have a great
Wonderful day ahead.
Stay safe because the pandemic's kind of crazy right now. And take care. Goodbye.
Goodbye.